And again, it goes back to the people you meet and how they like having this conversation with her made me realize, oh, you can ask for more money when they offer. And again, at that point, I wasn't even in the place of starting like to ask for more. But then over the course of the years in my career, I actually started asking for what I deserved. I started negotiating at every offer. Like I negotiate like with the, gas and electricity provider. Like I'm going to negotiate everything out of everyone. Like it's something that it just changes in your mind. So, and of course, like when you work in sales, you also learn how to negotiate. And it's a skill that it's really important when you're starting business and so on. Like you need to make ends meet one way or another. So if you can actually have conversations and really negotiate and listen to the other part, find a compromise, I do think it can be very powerful.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranbi, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Erica Surace on the show. She's the author of 3 books, produced 4 podcasts, and speaks at numerous events, even a TEDx event. She co-founded the D2 Collective in late 2022 with her best friend that was a fellow LinkedIn alum. So now just a little bit about you, Erica. How about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Yeah, first, like, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.
And I love you. Kudos for pronouncing my last name. I think you're the first person who pronounces it correctly. So I really
Oh, wow.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Absolutely. Names are important.
Yeah, they are. So so just a quick intro. I always say about myself that I love connecting people. I love building bridges. And I think all of my career, it's been basically built around that. Sometimes more consciously, like now, but also like maybe in the past a bit less consciously. And just it happened, but it was something that I always came back to. So I started like more kind from a resume perspective. I started my career in tech at LinkedIn. It was a great, incredible opportunity and a company that does really well by its employees. And it was just really a great place to start my career. I was based out of Dublin, but as people can hear from my accent, I'm from Italy originally. Been living abroad for about 10 years now. And and then I've been working in tech. I've been doing the job hopping thing of like going one job to another. I experienced like different companies. And then in 2022, unfortunately, I was part of the tech layoffs, like many other folks in the industry. And together with my best friend, who was also at the same company, also part of the layoff, and also we started our career together at LinkedIn. We actually thought, wow, it was a tough moment. Layoffs, of course, are just a moment where you're like reevaluating, reassessing, like, who am I? I'm just a number for the company. Like, just so many thoughts go through your mind. And then at the time I said, we said, okay, we need to do something purposeful, something that feels aligned with our values and with who we are. And so we started the D2 Collective as a community for people working in the tech industry, really a global value-based community. We do have members all over the world, in the US, mostly in Europe. But I'd say, now we've grown the community to almost 5,000 people.
Wow.
It's crazy in 18 months. So it's been a wild ride. We organize a lot of events to bring people together. We have hosted over 150 events in over 15 cities. Yeah, I know.
In 18 months, you've done all this?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'll let you keep going. Sorry.
But it's the power of community,
Yeah.
Like, it's really the power of community. We can do it because we have the support of all those people that are part of it. It's not just, and it's incredible what you can achieve together when you actually have a similar goal. And that's something I really love about the community we've built, is that it goes way beyond us. It's not just us, it's people who actually see us, and they really see us for who we are. They see the meaningful connections we want to foster, and they're like, okay, I want to be part of that. I also want to do my part. And this is so special. So I've been loving it.
That is absolutely incredible. The amount of growth you had in 18 months, because I know because we were talking a little bit before this, so we've seen each other on LinkedIn. This is the first time we're getting to talk to each other, seemingly face to face, virtually. The beauty of LinkedIn and technology, but how you built this incredible community of people who are in the tech space, who want to stay connected, who want to continue to develop professionally. So kind of talk, because I know you kind of talked about like experiencing the layoff and then work with your best friend. Kind of talk me through that process, as I know layoffs are something, unfortunately, are becoming far too common. So how were you able to take something that seemed like a really bad situation and turn it into something amazing like the D2 Collective?
Yeah, I keep saying like the layoffs were a blessing in disguise for me. But I do believe that with everything that happens to us, we have the power of deciding what is it going to be? Is it going to define us? And for me, I just didn't want to be a person who was impacted by layoff. I was like, okay, this is like a moment to really sit with something extremely uncomfortable. For the first time, I'm being laid off of my very like cushy tech job and sales. I was in sales. So it was, and then I was like, oh, did I really actually like that job? Did I want to like, and I never stopped, because you start, of course, like the tech industry is very fast paced environment. So everything goes so fast that I actually had never stopped to think like, am I happy doing what I am? Like, do I care about this? Do I care about selling software? Like, is it like aligned with my values?
It's
And
powerful.
yeah. And so, and with Nasty, my co-founder, I must say, like we're very aligned on values. Like we're very different people, but we're very aligned on the values, and we do believe in the same, genuine connection. We are truly passionate about what surrounds us. We are two people who like to think outside the box. So we always had, since we met like 8 years ago, those very deep conversations on life and work. And then when the layoff happened, we went through it together, and like we were very lucky, because how lucky must you be to go through such a crazy experience, because it was a crazy experience, but with your best friend by your side, and being able to share that with her and share like all of the fears and everything, that it was just incredibly special. So I absolutely, now looking back, I'm happy it happened. On the moment, it
Yeah.
was a bit tougher. And of course, the community is growing, it's going very well, but there's so much building behind. So I'm like, I love the results now. And I'm so proud when I say it, because I truly am, and I want to own my achievements. At the
Mhm.
same time, I want to remember like all the days that I was like, we were thinking, nobody's ever going to want to be part of it. Nobody's going to show up for the events, And
Wow.
and the key there was discipline. Like you need to show up every day, like you do with the podcast. Like people who truly care and are passionate about something, they show up. And if you show up enough and consistently, like things are going to come to you. You reap what you sow in the end.
What you so that's really powerful. And then this whole idea of self-discipline, it's a really key leadership trait as well. It is IncrediPaul leadership, so I got to tie leadership into it. And what you're doing leading this amazing community is discipline. I think a lot of times people think discipline is just doing things that you need to do, but discipline is doing things when you don't feel like doing it in spite of how you feel, because you have the why behind it.
Yeah,
Because yeah, go ahead.
there's a beautiful book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic. And
Big magic. Okay.
it's great for like creatives. And I do think that leaders and entrepreneurs are creatives as well. They fit into
Hmm.
like the kind of, because you need to think creatively when you're an entrepreneur. And she says people really romanticize the idea of like working as an artist, working with your creativity. Oh, it must be so beautiful. And with entrepreneurship is the same. Like we're like, oh, it's amazing. You live the life you want. I mean, there's also like a lot of hard work, and this is the truth. What happens behind the scene, what happens behind every
Mhm.
LinkedIn post, we're all very good at
Mhm.
displaying how well we're doing, but maybe on our failures a bit less. And she says, you need to find the shit sandwich that you want to eat, like this is entrepreneurship, this is creativity, this is
Yeah.
being an artist. You need to choose your shit sandwich that you're going to eat every time, every day, even when you don't want to do it, and you can choose it, because this is the beauty of it. You can choose yours, so you still have ownership. And I think ownership in the narrative, it's very important.
Yes, Ownership is very important, like you mentioned. And even what you're talking about with the shit sandwich, there's going to be things that you don't want to do, you don't want to eat, but you know you have to do. And that's really powerful. You said it was Big Magic? That's
Yeah,
what it's
big
called?
magic. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to add that to my reading list.
Yes.
That's really powerful. So, like, even going back a little bit before you got into LinkedIn, was tech something that you were always interested in, or like how? Talk me through like how you started to work in to tech. And I think you mentioned that you were in sales as well.
Yeah, I love this question. I had no idea what tech was. I had no idea you could work at the LinkedIn, at the Google, at the Meta. Um, I actually studied law, so my background is really like I didn't even study business, like which would be like kind of the career, like what puts you on that career path anyway. But I studied law in a business school, so it was a bit
Oh
of a
wow!
special, yeah, as like it was a special kind of law and special environment in Italy, and um, someone from the business school that I met there, she actually was working at LinkedIn, and one day she's like, "Oh, there's a position. They're looking for an Italian Spanish speaker." She knew that I could speak both, and she's like, "Shall I refer you?" And I was like, "Okay." Like what I had no idea. It was an entry level role as a sales development, and yeah, so I just started work. Like I got referred in 3 weeks. I did all of my interviews in like 2 months. I moved to Dublin. I uprooted
Wow!
my life. And I remember when I signed the contract, I wasn't sure what it really entailed working at LinkedIn. Like, what do you sell? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
And then I do understand that also for people, like my family still doesn't understand what I was doing when I was working in tech. And it's very common. It is a bit of a joke.
hmm
But they were like, "Oh, I've been logged out of my LinkedIn profile. Can you get me?" I was like, "I'm not in customer support. You need to log a ticket."
yeah. Put a
But
ticket like everyone else.
yeah, but yeah, so I ended up, I was already kind of working in sales before, but not in tech. And then, I landed in Dublin in like LinkedIn office it's incredible there as it is like in New York, in SF, like in New York, for example, it's in the Empire State Building. I had the chance to visit that
Oh wow!
when I was traveling, and I was like, wow, it's such a new world from what I knew before. Again, I'm just like, I was just a girl. I was 24, finished my studies, coming from Italy. Yes, I'd lived abroad in Europe, I had traveled, but I had absolutely no idea. And that referral actually put me on the path of building an international
Wow!
career in tech, being able to earn like being in the top 10% of earners, which it's incredible.
Wow!
That
Top
that
10%.
yeah, that one, yeah, because sales is a very good job. If you're good at sales, it's an
Well, it
amazing
sounds
job.
like you were good at it. Yeah.
I was
Wow.
good. And there's a quote that I heard like from someone at an event like a month ago, and he said, "I owe my professional achievements to other people," and it resonated so deeply with me because I was like, I owe this girl who referred me like so much. Like, of course, then I also owe it to myself because I stayed in the company and I
Yeah.
grew, and
hmm
like I don't want to diminish like my part in my personal story.
Yeah.
But people really have a huge impact. So the idea with D2 was really to create opportunities for others. Like the same way my life was completely shaped by this person that I met in university, we want to be able for people to meet other people that can shape their life professionally, personally. I mean, for me, one of the biggest things also of Dublin has been not only professionally but personally meeting my co-founder. She's my best friend. Like the
Yes.
way I align with this person, the way we are in sync, like I could have never wished for more in life, also from a friendship perspective.
Power of relationships is what the underlying thing behind it, between a person who was able to refer you to what you were doing while you're in LinkedIn, killing it in the sales, top 10%. Wow. I'm not going to get over that. That's amazing. And then even with the D2 collective, and that's something that resonates with me as well with building a community. I do some stuff in the nonprofit side, building community among people who are underrepresented in STEM. And what I've realized is a lot of times people don't always know what they can achieve until they have someone that comes alongside them to show them, like, these are the things I've done. This is what you can do. Kind of walk and guide you through it.
like representation matters, like this is so important for everyone. Like for me, like, I mean, in my family, nobody worked in tech, like none of my cousins or friends, like even among my group of friends from high school, like people are doing all sorts of things also from uni. But it's just something that when I think about it, I'm like, wow, that one connection, that one, like, I think she reached out on Facebook, or there was still Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And she reached out and I was like, oh, okay, let's do the interview. Like I was also being open to the opportunities. I think like when you let others in, it has like it wields such incredible power. The idea of like I'm always a bit like surprised, but when people show up at our events, not because we don't deserve it. Let me explain. But
Yeah, explain,
we,
please.
we we organize events and people come without knowing anyone. People show up and they don't know anyone. They don't know, maybe they come for the speakers, but sometimes, for example, we organize like leadership dinners, and you have those leaders, they don't have the full list of attendees because we are the only
Oh,
ones
wow.
having it.
Hmm.
So they're coming really trusting that we're bringing together a group of people in a very thoughtful way, and they trust us. Like trust is such a big part of working with people, working with a community, working with people's lives in the end, because so much goes into like crafting like the perfect vibe, making sure everybody feels welcome. So I'm always so surprised, like people really trust us, people show up, and this really makes me positively think about the world we live in, because there's so many horrible things happening. um and like life is not fair for a lot of people, and but then when people are open and they come with an open heart and like are ready to connect and to give before taking, and really this concept of paying it forward, which I've seen a lot when I was working, when I was working in tech in Dublin. I was sent to the US many times, and in the US, like in the Bay Area, I always felt so much this idea of paying it forward, like before
Wow.
taking someone from like before taking something, just give, 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 give. And I love the idea of giving. And when we started D2, one of the things we said is like, it doesn't matter if we make no money for years, we're just gonna do this because we believe in the vision, we believe in our mission, we believe in the good it's gonna bring to others. Money will follow. And Nasty and I made a pact, and we said we are gonna work on this for 3 to 5 years.
Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to IncrediPaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to IncrediPaul.org/coaching, IncrediPaul.org/coaching, or at I am IncrediPaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself.
Even if it doesn't make any money, we're gonna get other jobs, and we're gonna work on it on our 5 to 9. We're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So the first year we were still working full time, and that's also like entrepreneurship is not a linear career. You can be an entrepreneur while you're still working your full time job. You can find, maybe you need to do some like freelancers, to keep things afloat. You need to do you, and you need to find what works for you.
Need to do you. I really like that statement, because I feel like, especially with social media, we're inundated with things that saying these 10 steps, these 6 steps, you could become just like me. But when you were saying you need to do you, like you can take some aspects of what other people are doing, but you at the end of the day understand what works well for you. And I like what you mentioned, like even how to do entrepreneurship. I know there's someone I had on the podcast previously. He was talking about a similar thing, that he didn't even think about entrepreneurship. He just lost up in the leadership space. He wanted to start speaking. He started to find opportunities to speak while he was still working. And from there, that built a foundation to what he was doing in his speaking business. And now he leads a team of 50,000 coaches and speakers and trainers around the world. But he didn't start that. He started sales too. So maybe sales is where you need to start to be the most successful person in the world.
I think sales give you like a very interesting set of skills. There's no hard skills, like anybody can do sales. And there's not even, I think there's a bit of a stigma like, oh, you need to have a certain like personality. There's a bit of a stereotype that the salesperson is this like very chatty, very social, very outgoing. I do fit in this stereotype. So, but you like others, like my co-founder, she was also in sales. She's much more quieter than I am. Not introvert per
Really?
se, but just quieter. Yeah, we're like
Okay.
yin and yang. And also
The
like some of the
balance.
best salespeople I know, Nasty included, are the quietest person in the room. So to be honest,
Really?
yeah. So I think always like working in sales gets such a bad rep, but you develop so many skills and you learn how to prospect and really like find the right people in the right company, engage them, active listening. Like I didn't know how to listen before like starting working in sales. And I thought that selling was, oh, I'm gonna be the loudest, I'm gonna speak the longest. And I was like, no, I actually need to listen what they need if I want to help them. So like it's you learn about negotiation. Like I actually have a very funny anecdote from when I joined LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I was working in Italy before, and of course, like working a normal job in Italy and moving to Dublin working in tech was it's very different. Like salaries, like Italy is just a country that's of course like it's a first world country, but it's a bit more behind like from the
Oh,
work and
really?
professional opportunities perspective. It's very like this is very like rooted in the kind of culture that's there. You know, it's very hierarchical. Very like you need to leave work after your boss and they need to leave after their boss and so on.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a bit of like a special place. And so I went from that to LinkedIn. And I remember LinkedIn shared the offer and they were giving me like double what I was making in Italy. So I think in Italy I was earning 20K and they offered me 40. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much money. I'm going to be
Yeah.
hello inflation, but that's okay. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hello cost
Yeah.
of life. I was also paying much
Mm-hmm.
more for rent and everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, like my perspective was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm just gonna, go and so I went. They paid for my relocation. They gave me like
Wow.
couple thousand euros for like relocating, moving all my
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I didn't even have stuff at 24 years old, like I didn't even have stuff to move.
Mm-hmm.
I had a suitcase and that was it. And I remember I started, so Nasty and I were in the same team. And funnily enough, we were talking and I was like, yeah, wow, the offer was incredible. Like I just signed the moment I got it. I had no second thought. And she's like, oh, for me it was a bit tougher because yeah, I tried to negotiate more. And I was like, can you ask for more money? And for me,
Oh.
it was a concept that I just
Mm.
didn't have in me. I had absolutely no idea. And I do think that like meeting people, and again, it goes back to the people you meet and how they like having this conversation with her made me realize, oh, you can ask for more money when they offer. And again, at that point, I wasn't even in the place of starting like to ask for more. But then over the course of the years in my career, I actually started asking for what I deserved. I started
That's
negotiating at every offer. Like I negotiate like with the, gas and electricity provider. Like I'm gonna negotiate everything out of everyone.
Mhm.
Like it's something that it just changes in your mind. So and of course, like when you work in sales, you also learn how to negotiate. And it's a skill that it's really important when you're starting business and so on. Like you need to make ends meet one way or another. So if you can actually have conversations and really negotiate and listen to the other part, find a compromise, I do think it can be very powerful. So yeah, those conversations can always lead somewhere. And you meet so many people that actually open up your mind, and this is incredible.
Absolutely, it is incredible. And this is IncrediPaul leadership. And you are an incredible leader. Like active listening and negotiation. I think those are two really key parts of leadership, especially the active listening part. Because I think a lot of times we know that leaders were supposed to be good communicators, but I would say more than half of communication is listening and the active listening piece. And so, with the active listening, I will stick on this for a little bit because I feel like there's something that we can all improve on and something I'm actively working on, and podcasting helps with it. Is that something you started to develop before you joined LinkedIn, win sales, or some of the stuff you developed while you were in sales?
Yeah, I started at LinkedIn, but I must say, like the first couple of years I was working in sales, I wasn't a very good listener. Like I was like, oh, I need to know the product inside out. I need to give as many information on the features and on. I was just talking their ears off. Like to be honest, like I'm surprised that nobody said anything because I think I wasn't very good. And then at some point, I remember I had some good mentors during my career, and I think like mentors are also like such a great part. Like it always goes back to the people if you think about it, like and how
Hmm.
they influence you. And this mentor said, look, like you need to think that the time you spend with a client, but this can also be with someone in your team. Like active listening goes beyond, like who are the people you want to influence as a leader. And when you identify them, and again, it could be like someone that you want to work with, or someone that, I don't know, like someone in your team that I don't know, that you want them to develop, whatever, you need to understand them. And it's like every moment you get with this person that you want to influence, you need to get out as much information as you can from them. And how do you do that? You do it asking the right question and listening, and really truly listen what they say. Because if someone says, oh, I don't know, like like they are gonna give you clues that you can actually ask follow-up questions on. So I think one of the best tips that my mentor gave me was actually ask open-ended questions. So never ask a yes or no. I'm not gonna ask you, oh, do you enjoy podcasting? Because it's just yes or no. But I can say, what do you like about podcasting? Like, how are you finding your experience as a podcaster? What has been one of the highlight, and get you talking. And then from there, I get more information that I can ask more question on and really understand who's on the other side. And in sales, there's something very beautiful, which is you have three levels of pain. So you have a general pain, one that's a bit deeper, and then you have the personal pain. So why is so important for this person that a certain thing happen, or what happen if this doesn't happen? And getting to the third level of pain, I remember we were talking at LinkedIn about it, but I never really did it so well. It's something that came later in my career. And I think also when you're very like early in career, you just want to talk a lot because you're like, oh, I need to show that I know.
Right there, yes.
And the later you go in your career, you're like, oh, I can stay silent. I can listen. I like people will know it. And actually that emanates so much power. So yeah. Active listening is like a superpower, really.
I like that. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna take that. I'll give you the reference, but I'm gonna take that. Active listening. It truly is a superpower because, and what I've realized is that a lot of people are not truly listened to. Like a lot of times when we're talking to people, we listen to respond. We don't listen to actually understand. And we're just someone's talking, we're just waiting for when we can come in and say something. And so that's something I've been really intentional about really truly listening, try to repeat and try to understand, repeat back, like maybe someone said something, did I actually hear it correctly? And sometimes I realize, oh, I'm not hearing what they're saying. And other times when I realize I'm not active listening, this is a humility piece for me, is be like, hey, I was distracted by this. Can you repeat what you said? And that is really humbling when you have to do that, and that keeps me in check, so I can keep going and be a better active listener.
But I think that's great, I think that's great to say, hey, you know what? Like, I lost track for a second. Like, let's go back to that. I think there's so much power in actually owning everything. Like, if you own the narrative and everything that's happening in your life, you are in the driving seat, like you're not in the passenger seat of a conversation, of your own life, of your own experience of life. One of the things that really resonated of what you said is really like the recap. I think like I really appreciate when I'm speaking with someone, and it happened a few days ago. I was actually speaking with someone on the phone. They don't know about D2, so I was just explaining a bit what D2 is, and they said, oh, can I just recap it to you what I understood? And then they said it back, and they didn't understand what I was like, oh no, that's incorrect, but let's go back, ask me more questions if you want. I want like to be as clear as possible and help as much as I can. And I think it's great because so many times maybe people have, they understand something and they don't say, like, oh, they don't ask clarification, they don't say, hey, sorry, can we just circle back to that? um Something that's great. So now we're also like building a team, And it's also like, okay, how do we communicate with the team? How do we make sure that everybody really understand like the vision? And if they don't know something, they are in a, I mean, our team is psychologically safe enough to actually ask questions and say, hey, I'm not feeling comfortable about this, or I'm not sure I understand, and like they want to ask more questions. And I do think like something we are trying and really trying to be as leader, is really to be very open and transparent. Like, I think it's when you give access to leadership in general to everyone, everybody benefits of it. Everybody improves. Those exchanges, they really make every place like a better workplace, and everybody gets more inspired and they feels more aligned and in sync, and ready to share, even like say, oh, I actually don't think like you, but that's amazing, please like keep them copy. Like, I love when people have a different opinion than I do. Like, this is great because it's really creating a conversation where I can learn, you can learn, and everybody's benefiting from.
Yes, I really like just having that safe space, the psychological safety that you're talking about, a space that people can learn from. That's really powerful, and I think it takes a lot of intentionality to do that, and you have to like course correct at times. And sometimes I tell my team on the nonprofit that if this was just the Paul show, first of all, it would be very boring if it's just me running the show and doing all these different things. Second of all, like you would not feel empowered to do things because I want to make sure that as we're doing things that it's not just my ideas. Like as we come together, like this mastermind concept, like you bringing your ideas, different point of view, like you were mentioning, that is absolutely powerful because we are able to come in and there may be some things that people see things in a different perspective, or other times like maybe someone is bringing someone into the group that maybe doesn't necessarily match the culture, but if they call it out, you can actually express like, hey, this is why we're doing this, and then they can be better bought into it as from just like an outside perspective. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and I really do love like the different perspective, and I think it really for me traces back to my personal story. Like for me, like having had the chance to meet so many people, work in different countries, and really seeing how the diversity in any way of like thinking, of culture, of everything, like is just so enriching. And you cannot really go back to say, oh, I'm just gonna look at one part of the picture. No, I want to speak with as many people as possible, understand like how they would do it. I do have a lot of conversation, and sometimes entrepreneurs are very like attached to their project, their idea, their company, whatever it is. Like they're like, oh, I know what's best for it. And for me, one way that I like to approach is actually ask people, what would you do if you were in my shoes? If you today you were the
Oh,
co-founder of the Dizzy Collective, like what would you do? And it's really like because different people think in different ways, and so many great ideas actually came from conversations. And we need to like, I think it can be very humbling to say, look, my ideas may not be the best for this. And having a co-founder in this has been pivotal in saying, okay, like we have two different ways of looking at things, and sometimes I'm right, sometimes Nasti is right, and this is great, because we keep challenging each other and just looking at things from different perspectives.
that's really powerful. And what you were saying, which with your co-founder, that you guys coming together and really understanding this, and remind me of her name. I don't want to say her name wrong.
Nasti.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and Nasty like really working together on this. Like it's really unique when you're able to find someone like, and it feels like you found her pretty early on, like when you in LinkedIn, that going through the same process, going through the layoffs, and then coming together and saying like, this is something that we want to do to create this amazing community.
Yeah, and create value for others. I think like sometimes like you touched on this before, and now that it sank in a bit, I'm like, wow, that's very true, and it was powerful, and we look so much at what other people do. And I remember one of the things that happened in the very beginning for me was that we started and it was incredibly hard to build. A lot of people, of course, like now everything is going well, so a lot of people reach out, people are offering money because they want to invest. And, you know, like it's very
Awesome.
funny how the conversations actually change from people that when we launched, like we messaged every person in our first degree network, say, hey, we're launching these. We'd love you to be part of the beta. Not everybody replied, not everybody supported, which is totally like, it's fair, you know. I am an entrepreneur, so every time someone contacts me, I'm like, yes, I'm gonna support, I'm gonna buy, I'm gonna like whatever it
That's
is,
awesome.
I'm gonna buy like keychain. I don't know, it doesn't matter what you do, like I'm gonna support it in any way I can,
That's
because
very
I know
good.
the work it kind of goes in, and
Mhm.
you need like those little moments that make you go like, okay, I can do it, I'm gonna push forward, you know. And in the beginning, I remember I used to get so frustrated because I was looking at other friends also making the leap from corporate. Because again, there were so many layoffs, so people were really like reinventing themselves and looking at new ways. People getting into freelancing, people getting into coaching. And of course, like with those careers, like you do have a blueprint to follow. So they were very successful. Like after like 3 weeks after they left, you know, their
Oh,
job, you
wow.
know, like they had clients, and I was like, wow, I'm a failure, you know, like
Oh, man.
I'm not, you know, I was like, I'm not that good, you know. And at some point, like, and I was getting very frustrated. And I think it's okay to talk about this. And I was looking at
Yeah.
other people and I was comparing, and
Hmm.
at some point you also have a self-awareness that kind of sinks in, and it's like we're all on our own journey. Like you do you, I do me, like, you know. And that really, I think it's something that it becomes harder and harder because there's so much on social media, so many people, and everybody seems so successful and doing so
Yes.
well. And for me, like one of the big switch has been I stopped comparing. And when I find myself comparing, I'm like, okay, I need to stop. So it's the awareness. Also, just I think a big part is like what you're doing with the podcast, like creating content that everybody can benefit from and learn from. And, you know, maybe they listen to this conversation and they're going to be like, oh, okay, next time they're comparing themselves, they're like, oh, I remember what they talk about, Paul and Erica.
Yes.
That's, and I think this is so powerful, you know. Podcasts, they have a power of inspiring people and create like emotions that can inspire people to change. And this is, uh, you know, it's priceless.
It's absolutely priceless. And comparison is the thief of joy. And it's easy to say that, but I know I get caught in it all the time. And I have to stop myself, like you were saying, like that though it's their life, their story. Like I'm a person of faith. So I'm like, maybe this is what God has for me. That's what God has for them. And I'm trying to walk out something that God doesn't have for me. So it's not going to work to walk in my own path. So,
And I do think the perspective of always thinking how far you've come, you know, sometimes we're so projected on the future and looking at what we want for our future, what should come our way. And it's like, wow, I think like 15-year-old Erica would be so proud of me now, you know? And like when I look, I'm like, oh, that's a nice way, you know. It's a good perspective to have, to like think, oh, actually, you know, I have a lot to be proud of, and i can I can be more grounded in like what is the now and what is today. And it's really hard, you know, like because we all have like big dreams and big visions, and I do believe that there is a lot of power and, yeah, just beauty also in like, oh, I want a world of like happiness for myself, of course, and of abundance and of beautiful things. um and I love people who can actually look at life from a like glass half full kind of perception, you know, very optimistic, very, and at the same time like really say, okay, I'm not going to beat myself down, you know. I'm going to be grateful, I'm going to find like what works, I'm going to look at my life and say, okay, I've done a lot to get here and I should be proud of it. I'm going to celebrate it, I'm going to cherish it, and I'm going to keep working. Like in the end, every goal that everyone can have, like, it's just about, okay, what can you do today that's going to get you 1% further to where you want to get. And I think this
yep.
is one of the things that I've really noticed. Like I have a friend, like he's incredible, you should have him on the podcast.
Yeah.
His name's Gary, and he's the founder of Tangent. And Tangent is an incredible company that supports corporates to find more diverse talent coming from
Oh, wow.
lower like socioeconomic backgrounds.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's active in the UK. Like that's where they started. We used to work at LinkedIn together, so that's how I met him. A lot of my
Awesome.
stories start, oh, I met this person at LinkedIn, you know. But
LinkedIn. Wow.
the real power of relationship matters, which is one of the values of the company. And he's doing like incredible. And so someone came to an event we hosted in Amsterdam and said, oh, you should connect to the founder of this company, Tange. I'm like, oh, he's a friend of mine. I know him, you know. And I was like, he deserves so much that people go and talk about him. But the only reason why he's getting this is because every day he wakes up and he's like, I'm going to move the needle. What can I do today that's going to move the needle? And he really works aligned to his values and his vision. And he looks at like, okay, is this going to serve us in the long run? And not looking at short-term win or like quick wins or like shortcuts. And I love this. And I find like if you have people that surround you that are so inspiring, and for me, like he's one of these people.
Yeah, Gary sounds amazing. Definitely would love to have on the podcast and learn more about Tangent and what they're doing to help people with lower socioeconomic status and underrepresented people. I think it's really interesting. I could just tell from everything you're talking about. It seems like the culture at LinkedIn was one that really brought people together. That was really relationship focused because all the people from your co-founder to people that you've worked with, and then Gary with Tangent, like it feels like a lot of those relationships that really skyrocketed to where you are now seems like it started from LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Like I feel that every time I'm doing some public speaking or podcast, I'm a employer branding LinkedIn hat. I'm nobody's paying me to say it, but it's like
Yeah.
it's so special. Like the people there, so it's a company that really does right by its employees, which I think it's great, but also like relationship matter and they treat you as a person and as your own person. So sometimes you join companies and they're like, oh, we're a family, red flag, or
Yes.
oh, huge red flag, or it's like, oh, we are, or like they just look at you like, oh, your manager is talking to you or your director and they don't want to know anything about your personal life because they only care about the work person. They don't care about you as you are as a person. But we need and we want and we should bring our whole self to work. I think this is so important, we hosted an event on all being at work, and I find it so important to be able to be your own self and to be fully yourself. And LinkedIn really embraced this. So one of the things that for me really stood out is that I remember I joined the company, and at our introduction class, like it's the first week, they say, oh, what do you want to do after LinkedIn? I was
Wow.
like, do they want to fire me already?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, why? And I was like, and then it's like, oh, they understand that a job is not forever. And it's like,
Wow.
we want to support you as much as we can to get close to your next play. What's going to come after for you? They understand not everyone is going to stay 25 years at a company. And even if they do, there's still something that comes next, like work is not your ultimate goal. And the kind of holistic approach to employees and employees well-being, I think really paid off. And so people go there and that the company is great, they have values, they treat their employee well, and everybody's keeping themselves to a standard that's a bit higher than normal. So everybody's on their best behavior, and then you meet incredible people on their best behavior, wanting to help each other. Every time I meet someone ex LinkedIn, I feel like we're part of the same community. And with the D2, this is what we want to create, people that even if they're based in totally different countries or they have different backgrounds or whatever, they meet and they're like, oh, we have the same values. We get along, we are part of the same team.
That's absolutely amazing. Like from LinkedIn and really creating that culture in the D2 Collective. And I think if I remember right, you have something coming up for D2 Collective in the United States.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that, because maybe someone listening is able to come and be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been hosting, of course, like a lot of events in Europe. We hosted like a few like community-led events, also like in the US, very small, like small mixers or breakfasts or just for people to connect. And we actually had a client that said, I want you guys to organize some events for us in the US. So we partner with companies a lot to help them connect with the right people. And so we're going to go to the Bay Area in September. We're going to host 2 events, one in San Francisco, one in Palo Alto. There's
Oh,
going to be more information on our website. And then we're going to host a community event end of August in New York. So it's going to be, I mean, once you make the trip, you make it you make it work. That it needs to be worth it. It's a long flight. We're going to make 2 stops,
yeah,
and
for sure.
very exciting, because I mean, also, like, the US is where the tech industry was born, like it's where everything started, like the Silicon Valley, like this is, so it's super exciting to bring D2 there. We already spoke with a few people, and everybody's like, it's so vibrant here, like it's like next level, so very curious to bring D2 to the next level.
That's really exciting. I'm not in the tech space, so I'm an engineer, and then I do entrepreneurship stuff. But that is something I'd be interested in. So I'll try to see. I'll look out, see if I can make my way to the Bay Area or New York. My brother lives in New York, so that would probably be easier to do. So
Be a nice family trip.
yeah, exactly. Well, I know we've been talking for a while, and we can go on and on, but I know I don't want to make this too long. I know you have other things you need to do, but is there anything that we haven't talked about yet, either about D2, like yourself personally, or even just a tip you would give to a young professional who's maybe dealing with a layoff or not sure about what they want to do, that you want to share?
Yeah, it's, don't take your career too seriously. Everything can be changed. There's no linear career. Like, sometimes we think that it needs to be from A to B to B to C. And there's actually, like, so many, like, I think, podcasts and stories out there that now actually tell you that it doesn't have to be like that. Speak with people. Don't be afraid to leverage, like, a platform like LinkedIn to actually reach out to people. There's a person I actually really like on LinkedIn, and she's based in New York, I believe. And or in the Bay Area, I don't remember now. And what she says is that she says every week, reach out to 2 people that seem a bit too far for you, like a bit aspirational, reach out to 2 people that you've been following, but you have no contact yet. You know what? Someone is going to reply at some point. And so don't be afraid of making that connection. Like, we're all so afraid, and we get stuck in not doing because we're afraid of what other people are going to think and so on. The only judgment that matter and should matter is what you think about yourself, and how you carry yourself, and how you're aligned with your values, and how you own your career. So own your career, but don't be defined by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, own it, but don't be defined by
Yeah.
it. And that's something I was still learning, but I definitely learned more in the last couple of years, because I was in a job I really loved. I transitioned to one I didn't like, and I was like, is my job really who I am? Because if it is, I'm not liking who I am right now based on the job I'm in. So I think that's really key, that you own it, but don't let it define you.
And
So powerful. But Erica, it's been incredible having you on the show. Like, really, I feel like the foundational piece of this episode has been talking about relationships, from what you shared, from where you were at really from in the beginning, where you said that you studied law in a business school before you transitioned into sales, working, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you worked at sales a little bit before you got into LinkedIn, or did you go
yeah,
direct?
yeah.
Yeah.
I had like a 1-year experience in sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 year in sales before you transition into LinkedIn. And then that's where you were faced head to head with this active listening, and really took off for a top 10%. I said, I'm not going to forget about that. Top 10% earners in LinkedIn. And then from there, we're able to build a successful community, met a lot of different people, met your co-founder, Nasty, met your other friend, Gary, as well at Tangent. And then from there, like, throughout that, like, even when you talked about experiencing layoffs, but what you really talked about, I don't know if you used this word, but the layoff being a gift, because it gave you the opportunity to create the D2 collective. And now your impact is so much more than just LinkedIn. You're connecting people in tech industries across the world, not just Europe, Asia, Africa, across the world, truly. And with that, and that's why when I seen you on LinkedIn for a while, I was like, reach out to her. I know she's tremendously busy. See if she has the time. I'm really glad you made the time, and hope that people got something from your story.
Thank you so much. And thank you for recapping everything because I'm like, wow, is that really me? Yes, it is. And
It's
sometimes we need to
absolutely.
hear it from someone else. And thank you
Mhm.
so much for having me. Like the space you create, I think it's so special. I really felt that the psychological safety we were discussing was definitely there. So thank you so much
Yes.
for fostering a place where people can be themselves and they can share their learnings and their lessons.
Absolutely, as you're doing the same. But before I let you go, I want to make sure people know how to connect with you, whether it's on social media, website, how to get connected with D2 Collective as well.
Yeah, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think there's going to be a link maybe in the description because my name, otherwise it's impossible for people to find. But Erika Isotta Surace. And then, of course, the D2 Collective.community. And then you can find there all of the info about our upcoming events. We're posting about the events in the US soon. So they should be
Awesome.
online by end of July. So
Awesome.
everything is going to be there and updated.
Awesome. I might time it so that this episode comes out when that's also live, so to make it a little bit more seamless. But no, thank you so much. And I'll transition to like those of you who are listening to this podcast or watch this podcast, you also watch it on YouTube. I hope you got something from Erica's story. If you're a young professional, maybe if you're not a young professional, you're just a professional, you're in the entrepreneurial space, in the career space, you've experienced a layoff. The layoff is not the end. It can actually be the beginning. It can be the foundation. But one key thing that we mentioned here is the relationships, community building, mentorship is so key. You do those things, you can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.